Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there, and welcome to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick, and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m., and please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, and now on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. All over the place on social media, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsor for our show today. For a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free. Well, today, we have an inspiring guest for you, and I think everybody's going to drop what they're doing as soon as you hear what my guest Yutaka has in store for you today. Thanks for joining me on the Boating Hour, Yutaka.
Good morning, Captain Rick.
Well, you're doing what everybody wants to do, even if they don't admit it. And I'm a sailor, and every time I see guys like you out there, I want to drop what I'm doing and either jump in the water or, sit in the boat. And so let's let you explain it, because I'm going to put some photos up there. They're wonderful photos, and I tell you, it's just so exciting when I meet my friends, because you are a recreational lobster fisherman. So tell me about what you do and how you got started in this.
Absolutely. Well, as Captain Rick just mentioned, I am not a commercial lobster fisherman, but I am a recreational lobster hunter, gatherer, whatever you want to call it. And I've been doing it for quite a while. I got scuba certified in 1986, so that's quite a long ways. And over the years, gotten pretty good at it. And I did quite a bit of scuba diving for lobster and also a lot of hoop netting for lobster, so both ways, underwater and on top of the water. And I think that I think your listeners would agree that we are really privileged to live in Southern California, where we have this great playground right in front of us called the Pacific Ocean. And if you're not taking advantage of that and all the great things it has to offer, then you are missing out. So hopefully today can inspire some people to get out there and participate in this great activity.
When I was a youngster, I'm not sure they do this anymore, and if they don't, I should lead the charge. Every school, and I'm talking grammar school, we would have a visit to the marina. We would meet sailors and fishermen. Of course, we met firemen and police officers and moms and dads and, doctors and parent-teacher night and all this kind of stuff. But one of the exciting things was the field trips. So, of course, we went to the museums. But, I remember I can't even remember how young it was. One of my early memories were the field trips. And we would do one a month or one every other month. And a couple times a year, we would go in this grammar school. We would go to our local marina, and we would meet some people like you. And it was just an exciting era. I mean, it's are you seeing kids out there at all? Where's your boat, and where do you normally go out?
Well, the boat is trailered, so we go wherever we need to go. But we've done lobstering as far north as the Ventura County line, San Diego, Catalina, all the local islands, and so on and so forth. There is such a wide area of places that you can go for this activity. You're really not limited to any one particular place. So wherever you live, closest point of the ocean is probably good enough.
What was it like getting scuba qualified? Did you grow up? Was that a passion of yours? Did you get into late in life? I mean, give me a little background, and then the transition from getting scuba qualified, and now trapping. The difference between jumping in the water, because
Sure.
My friend Dave, who does the fish report, he dives. He's not a netter. He has netted, but he's an amazing guy. We do a fish report, but talk about. I think I asked you about a dozen questions all at once. So tackle them as you like.
We could hit those. Yeah, I've always had a fascination with the ocean, and thought I might be a marine biologist when I grew up, when I was younger. And I was already an avid sport fisherman when I got scuba certified in college at UCLA.
Okay.
And they had a program there where you can get certified, and that was famous for its rigorous training program. We went through quite a bit to get certified, so I feel very comfortable in the water. And I got certified, scuba certified, not for the reason that most people have. Most people, you know, when they get scuba certified, are thinking, oh, I'm going to go to some tropical island and see all the pretty fishes and the corals and all that stuff. That was not my motivation. My motivation was to get underwater and hunt for lobsters, gather abalone, scallops, things like that.
Okay.
So, you know, off the bat, that was my that was my goal going in to get scuba certified, and I jumped right into that. And for those who are already scuba certified, I'll tell you, lobster hunting, lobster gathering happens at night because the spiny lobster in California here are nocturnal. And so it adds a completely new dimension to your diving. When you dive at night, you can only see what your light hits, and it is absolutely fascinating. So even if you are a scuba diver right now, if you start this lobster hunting, you're going to see things that you have not seen in your scuba diving experience.
Wow.
Now, I would also mention that the California spiny lobster fishery is very well regulated and by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and there are lots of rules and regulations. So definitely, go to their website, wildlife.ca.gov, before you start, embarking in this activity. And I would also mention that the enforcement of these regulations is very robust. So please be aware of that. For those who are unfamiliar with the California spiny lobster, is it the same as what you see in the market? No, it's not. Most of the lobsters that you see in your local fish market come from the East Coast. They're Atlantic lobsters, and they have these big claws. California spiny lobsters don't have claws, but instead they have very sharp spines around their body, which is how they get their name, spiny lobster, and that's what they use for defense. As far as how they taste, California spiny lobster has a firmer, sweeter meat, and it is more highly prized and can fetch prices as much as $60 a pound.
Wow.
Certainly during the end of the season. So that is why I think this activity of lobster hunting has become so popular in recent years.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's right, because the lobsters here, I mentioned that when I've had, Dave on the Fish Report, that we don't have claws. And so they're a completely different lobster, different taste, different lobster.
They are definitely a different taste.
Wow.
They are sweeter and firmer.
What are some of the rules and restrictions, and how do you go about properly and legally? I mean, there are certain areas. Is it the amount of lobsters you can get, or the season, or the time, or the area, or a combination of all of them? What does it take?
It's a combination of all of them. So again, we just started our lobster season. Was it last weekend? Lobster season started, and it will go until March. But for the specifics, I would definitely point people to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife site, which is wildlife.ca.gov, because there are a lot of regulations, as I mentioned, as far as method of take, size limits, so on and so forth. So, and you have to have you have to purchase what's called a lobster card, which means every time you go out, you have to record where you're gathering the lobster, how many you took, so on and so forth, and it has to be recorded in real time, essentially.
Oh, really?
Yes, it is very well regulated.
If you're and the difference between diving and setting the traps out there, how many are you allowed to take? I mean, can you feed a dinner for four, or is it more limited than that, or Yeah,
it's actually very generous. It's seven per person per day,
okay,
which is actually a generous limit. And trust me, if you get your limit in a particular day or night, that's a great haul. I mean, that is something to be proud of. And you don't really have to have a major investment in order to give it a try. You can catch lobster using snorkeling gear in our local waters. So, if you want to give it a try, you can even use your snorkel gear. And certainly during the earlier parts of the fall, late summer, early fall, they tend to be in very shallow water. And we've gotten them in water as shallow as 5 feet in the early parts of the of the season. So that's something you can try. Now, the ways that a recreational fisherman can get lobster, you can either take them by snorkel and scuba with your hands, no tools allowed, or you can use what's called baited hoop nets. If you want to stay above the water and not get wet, you can use hoop netting gear, which are essentially open hoop nets. They're not traps. They're open nets that you drop in the water with bait in the middle, and you wait for a while and bring them up. And it sounds easy, but like anything else, whatever it is, it's going to take a little bit of time for someone to get good at it. So it's not one of those things where you can expect to go out, your first time and you come home with a big pile of lobsters. So it's something that you do have to kind of invest your time in.
I think that's true for everything. Doing anything well is always difficult. Is the size is there a minimum and maximum?
Yeah, the way the lobsters are measured, they're measured on their carapace, which is the back shell. So you have to have an approved measuring device specifically made for lobster, and when you catch the lobster, you have to immediately measure that carapace to make sure it's above legal size. And if it is, you can keep it. If not, it needs to be returned immediately to the water where you captured it. And this is a very important thing because the wardens are out in the water. We get checked all the time while we're out there, and they will come up and check your equipment, make sure you have legal-sized lobsters, make sure you have the correct tools for measuring, so on and so forth, all your licenses. And we do get checked very often by the wardens. So that is something you do have to watch out for. Now, the spiny lobster, a just legal spiny lobster will weigh about a pound and a quarter, and the overall length of a legal lobster is probably about I'd say about 12 inches long for a barely legal lobster, from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail. Now, they can get significantly larger than that. The largest one I've ever taken measured 26 inches from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail, and that was caught at San Nicolas Island, which is one of our offshore islands. So they can get significantly larger, and that one weighed about 13 pounds.
Wow. I once had the opportunity, I was friends with somebody, this is many years ago, and I didn't quite understand my lobsters. And I had helped him with a couple of things, and he had his commercial license, and I helped him on the boat, and he said, look, you can have your pick. And he had picked out a couple relatively small lobsters, but he had some larger ones. And then he had one large lobster, and I understand now, the larger they are, the older they are, the tougher the meat. And I took a picture. I was holding this like a baby, and it didn't have the claws, and it was pretty darn big. The bug on this was the biggest I'd ever seen. And he said, okay, you sure you want that? He goes, why don't you take this instead? I go, oh, no, I want this one. And I went up to the yacht club, and I tell you that was an old lobster. And I always wondered if that was even legal because we couldn't even eat it. It was it was an oldie, and he said, "Yeah, the smaller the lobster, but they got to be a certain size." And I guess with the lockdowns, not as many people going out for a while. I understand that it's plentiful right now. That the oceans are plentiful with lobster. That they're up and down, and it's a good season that you're going to have.
Really hope so. And at the beginning of the season, like we are right now, it's a lot easier. They're more abundant. They're less shy. They haven't been harassed. And so if you want to give it a try, now is the time to do it. The weather is still good. As we go into winter, the weather starts getting a little iffy. So what I would suggest for those that want to try it, if you are already scuba certified but have never tried lobster diving, definitely the regulations. Understand what equipment you're going to need, like a game bag, some Kevlar line gloves, a dive light, so on and so forth. And if you've never done that, but you are scuba certified, go to a rocky reef site anywhere along our coast or one of the islands. Do a dive late in the afternoon during the day when you can still see everything, and look inside the cracks and crevices, look for lobster antennas sticking out, and note the terrain that you're in, and look for landmarks and so on and so forth. And then later on, take a break, later on, dive the exact same site at night. And that gives you kind of, gives you some familiarity with the area. because you've just dove it. You can recognize some of the landmarks, so on and so forth, and it'll help in your navigation. And you can see the differences between night and day and the creatures that are out there and how everything looks different. So that's what I would suggest for a first-time night diver or first-time lobster hunter is dive the same site during the day and then do it at night.
What's your favorite spot? Because my favorite spot is still, Catalina. Although, I like going to the lighthouses and I go up to Channel Islands and, I like being on other people's boats and, but as far as diving, are you allowed to go to the backside of Catalina, or is that the preserve where, as far as what bank is, where you're not? I'm not really sure. Do you go to Catalina quite a bit? And then also, what's your favorite spot?
We really like Catalina. It's beautiful. The water is clean. I actually think the lobster taste better from there than along the shoreline, along the coastline. But, that's just an opinion. And there's so many great places here. The harbor breakwalls are really popular for people for lobster hunting. But any of the islands are great. The Orange County coastline has great terrain. The northern LA County area does too. But remember, there's also marine protected areas now along the coast, and you have to be aware of where you are, where you can fish, where you can take lobsters, invertebrates, so on and so forth. So again, it is well regulated, so please check that out with the Department of Fish and Wildlife site to understand where that is. But to answer your question, I really do like the offshore islands. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, you're also going to encounter commercial lobster traps when you're out there. And Catalina on the lee side facing the mainland, and also Santa Monica Bay, there is no commercial lobstering allowed.
Oh.
So that makes it great for us recreational guys, because both those areas are accessible and you won't have to contend with the commercial lobster guys.
Wow. Okay. That I didn't know. So I guess I see a lot of commercial up in Ventura, Oxnard, and then when you go, down to maybe King Harbor, but you don't see any commercial, fishing boats at all in Marina del Rey.
Right.
So yeah, it's very. I didn't know that. So no commercial.
Yeah. So take advantage of that, and also, if you want to try hoop netting for lobster, that can be a kind of a hefty initial investment for the hoop nets and all the other equipment, the ropes, the floats, so on and so forth. If you'd like to give it a try, there are several boats here in Southern California, several sport fishing boats, open party boats, where you can just grab a reservation and go out, and they assign you a hoop net, and they'll drop hoop nets in the water in the late afternoon and pick them up once it gets dark, and you'll set the nets 2 or 3 times in the course of the evening, and you can get a taste of what it's like to do the hoop netting. I believe the boats, Gale Force, Triton, out of LA Harbor Sport Fishing in San Pedro offers hoop netting trips through the course of the season. And if you're down in San Diego, I think I believe there's a boat called the Alicia out of H&M Landing that does the same thing. They take a maximum of 10 passengers, because you're only allowed 10 hoop nets on any given boat, no matter the size of the boat or however many people are on board. There's a limit of 10 hoop nets, so they limit these trips to 10 people. But it gives you a chance to go and experience it without having to put out the initial investment for all the equipment.
Right. I think I'd like to do that. I didn't know that, so I see the fishing boats that go out. I didn't know they had some boats dedicated to the hoop netting and the lobsters. That's something maybe I can do. So be around people that know what they're doing, get a little bit of, so you're not on your own. What kind of boat do you have? What are you trailing around?
I have a striper, 23-foot striper sport fisher, which I co-own with a friend of mine, and it sits on a trailer, so we can take the boat anywhere we want to take it. During the summer, we're out chasing tuna and yellowtail and dorado, so we'll trailer down to San Diego or go out to Dana Point. I just had the boat in the water for a week at a guest slip in Dana Point, which was absolutely great. So it gives us a little bit of mobility to go where the fish are.
How's that been? How's the fishing? You've been catching. What's the big catch right now? Because I understand that we're getting some bluefin too out here.
Yeah, over the last 7 or 8 years, something changed where we're seeing big bluefin tuna come into our local waters, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. The tuna fishing has been just great this year, and the season now seems to last longer, start earlier, and keep going well into November. We were catching bluefin tuna in March this year, and I think the season is going to go well into November. And they are right off our coast.
Wow. That's unique, huh?
Oh, and these are triple-digit fish. I mean, these are 100, 200-pound fish right off our coast. And, in all the years that I've been fishing, this is the first time I've ever seen this. So we're certainly trying to take advantage of that while it lasts, because I don't think it's going to last forever. I say get out and go do it.
Wow, that's exciting. Many shows ago, when I think right after the first time I had a fish report with one of my great guests, Dave, that comes on, someone emailed me a link to YouTube, and it was showing an auction for $1 million bluefin tuna. It must have been in Japan. And it went for $1 million, and I still thought couldn't be possible. It's on the internet. This was
yeah, and there's a reason for that, and it is usually for the New Year's celebration, and it is for the fish that is deemed the best in quality of the catch that comes in for it, and it's usually one of the big chain restaurant owners that go into a bidding war. And it's not so much that the fish itself is worth that much, but the publicity that the restaurant generates for buying that fish and serving that fish is well worth it for them. Especially if if you have a chain of 50 restaurants and
sure.
And your restaurant becomes famous for it, it's well worth the money. So,
wow, Boy, I tell you, that is really exciting. God, this has been so exciting having you on the show. This is something that I want to recreationally get into. I'm not scuba certified. Many of my friends are. They're all trying to push me to do that. I like snorkeling. I like sailing. I like going to Catalina and jumping in the water. I like all the islands. And I really want this show to inspire people to get out there and do recreational activities on the water, whether it be sailing or fishing or even paddleboarding. I've had some paddleboarders. I've just invited some paddleboard companies, including the one that does the yoga paddleboarding on. So, you started the show saying something very true. We have got this unbelievable Pacific Ocean, and it is a recreational playground. It's absolutely amazing.
Certainly. So if people want to get started, if you're a diver, I would visit one of your local dive shops, pick up a copy of California Diving News. It's got listings for the boats that will go out for lobster trips and so on and so forth, and have articles about what you're going to need. If you would like to try hoop netting, like I said, there's a couple of boats that are available out there. Also, I would recommend going to the Promar website, and they manufacture the hoop nets and other equipment for boaters, and they have a wide assortment of equipment. Take a look at it, see what's involved. So that would be a company called Promar, and they're local here in Southern California.
I'll put that all up on my website, along with the photos of you, the wonderful photos of you that you sent me. And I want to really thank you for joining me today and coming on the show and talking about recreational lobster trapping and diving. It's been a great show. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Captain Rick.
That's exciting. Go to the website. We'll have some great photos, inspire you to get out there and start this recreational hobby. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our show. And let's not forget the Coasties, protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Remember, if you do it right and follow the guidelines and safety precautions, there's no place like being out in the water in the fresh air and sunshine in beautiful, sunny Southern California. Thanks to our sponsor for our show today, for a healthy gut, Livia One Probiotics. Don't forget to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com and now all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Keep your emails coming. This is Captain Rick saying ahoy and fair winds to all.